Hey everybody, and welcome back to Uru. As you probably are well aware, I made a complete idiot mistake in the last video by completely turning the sound off here. It turns out that that's what this does. If you press this, the game will mute. Why it does that, I'm not sure. Maybe that was supposed to be used, more if you're online. Maybe you can mute the sound and maybe the voice chat still works. I don't know. But at any rate, I'm going to just minimize the key now. I'm going to try to make this jump over here. It looks like we've got an island over here, and there is this building to get through. To get to, that is. So let's go, and that was not at all what I had in mind, glitching through the rock like that. Okay, well, we're going to have to go back, so we'll get to see the first part of the structure again, at least. At least it'll be a short trip this time. We'll go back to the starting point. It's kind of the nice thing is that you don't have to use the last journey cloth. You can just go back to the start if you want. Alright, let's give this a shot. The timing on this is really weird because I think the game kind of forces you to get the timing very specific. But in doing so, I think the game developers noticed that the timing was specific, so they kind of built some leniency in there and forced the physics to behave in a certain way. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but it's kind of like when, instead of fixing a bug, you kind of put a band-aid on it. And maybe that's not what happened here, but it kind of looks that way. So I've done it correctly before, and it looks really weird. But again, I guess the jumping does kind of look a little strange. So fun fact, there's actually a bug in the online game that can actually glitch you out if you go up the elevator at certain points. That's also really weird. Alright, let's give this another try. Hopefully this time will be a little less fail-heavy here. Yeah, we're trying to get to that other building over there. And from that island, I kind of want to see if we can get a better view of this building right here. There we go. I think what the awkward portion of it was that I was hitting this wall that the rock formed. So, yeah, I think that's what that's all about. But we have a journey cloth here, which is good news because we need to save our progress. And we can get even better views of what's all around us here. We get the original fortress building, which looks really interesting. I think this was what was in that symbol for this age in the proverb book. But ultimately, I'm trying to get over there, because that building looks even more imposing and more interesting, so... Well, not about more interesting. That building is pretty cool. We still don't really know what all this is for. If this is Gahreesen, then it seems like this might have something to do with laws or something. I mean, maybe this was a prison or whatever. I mean, it doesn't really look like a prison. There's no holding cells in there. But it looks very fortified, and I'm kind of curious to know why it's so fortified. Alright, so this next jump here, this one is a little bit more awkward. Because the space that you have, the window that you have of opportunity is pretty short. I recall this being a pain, but maybe it won't be so bad, I don't know. There we go, we made it on. It almost looked like it stopped when we hopped on, but I think that was just the fact that we were about to land on it, so the camera kind of changed perspectives to the platform. Here we can get even better view of the whole thing here. Alright, so let's keep going forward. Looks like there are multiple entrances into here. We can see at least 3. There might be even more than that. Also, I really like this music, too. Music for this game was composed not by Robin Miller from Mist and Ribbon or by Jack Wall from Mist 3 and 4, but by a new composer named Tim Larkin, who I think did a really excellent job. And can we walk in? There we go. Looks like we have an airwalk here. Okay. This aesthetic here looks a lot more sinister than the first building. Wow, feels like something out of Star Trek or something. Look at all this. Alright, there's paths to our left and right, but I want to go through this door first. Okay, we found a room with some stuff in it. That's interesting. Is that something you're supposed to wear? I mean, it's like your head could go in there and your arms can go in these things. Doesn't look very comfortable, though. What's this? Whoa. Hey, check us out. That looks cool. Man, I look all sinister now. Look at that. Oh, hey, there's a... Is that a person there, or is that just a replica? I'm guessing that's just a replica. That mask looks a lot like the one we saw in the key dispenser room, I think it was. There's a passage here, too. Let's go down it and see what's over on this side. No idea what all this stuff is. This kind of looks like that suit thing earlier, but it's not. It looks like a bunch of pods. What are these things, anyway? Alright, I don't think there's any more to see there, so let's go out this way. So it looks like this whole outer area goes around the perimeter of the thing. Yep, definitely the Star Trek aesthetic. I'm feeling it here. So what is this place, anyway? There's another door. Okay, now this room looks more like a conference room. In fact, it kind of looks a lot like that war room in Geonosis from Star Wars. Okay, first of all, there's a journey cloth here, so let's touch that. Alright, we've got only 2 left to go. And we can see out into this room out here. It's very interesting. We've got this giant wall, and there's a bunch of other stuff, although we can't really make out what exactly it is. Kind of curious about this suit, though. Alright, what all can we see here? I noticed there was something on the table here. I'm just checking to make sure there's nothing in the chairs. Ah! There's a notebook here with the title Gahreesen. So it looks like we are indeed in Gahreesen. And there's a post-it on it saying, Simpson, don't mention anything about the upper area of the fortress in your Gahreesen report. I don't want people wandering all over Teledon looking for that weird link stone. Sharper. So, there are a couple of things here. First of all, we can see the logo of that organization we saw earlier, the DRC, although it's partially obscured by this post-it note. And it seems like somebody left this here. I don't know if it was for us to read or if it was just by accident. But it looks like this is a report by this person named Simpson, who transcribed this from a voice, or somebody transcribed it from his voice recording. And it looks like this Simpson person went to Gahreesen on multiple trips from November 12th, 2001 to June 4th, 2002. So, I think now is as good a time as any to talk about the DRC. There's really no good way to introduce the DRC to the Let's Play other than probably just right now. But essentially, the DRC... I'll put the notebook away so you guys can look at something a little more interesting there. The DRC was short for the Dunny Restoration Council. And essentially, this group of people was meant to be sort of the... guides that set up shop in the Dunny Cavern when they discovered the entrance to the city and everything. And they thought, hey, we can build a city down here again. We can actually, take care of all these people and, see how things go. And the whole point of the online component of Uru was to be a hub of sorts for an ongoing story involving the DRC and people in the game. And it was meant to be one of those things where there would actually be people from Cyan who would play characters in the DRC in-game, and you wouldn't necessarily know who they were. I mean, you would eventually after a while, but you could introduce new characters easily by, hiding somebody in a crowd, and then, oops, surprise, they're part of the story, and everything is actually about them, and It was a fascinating concept. Sadly, it didn't get past like the first chapter, but we'll learn a little bit more about what became of the DRC as we play 2 Dunny particularly. But throughout the game, you'll notice that there is going to be a bunch of these notebooks that they left behind. And these are notebooks that the various members of the DRC wrote about their experiences and their observations on these various ages. So that's kind of the backstory behind that. I don't want to spoil too much more, but I kind of wanted to step out of character, so to speak, for a minute just to say what this is, just so we don't have a lot of confusion here. Alright, so without further ado, let's go ahead and read this. Okay, one thing seems immediately obvious. This place was built for security. No one could write a link anywhere in this place, or the next. It was obviously a maintainer facility of some kind, and it doesn't seem that it was for general guild members. By that, I mean it was limited to at least the higher-ranking members. As to how they got the first link written here, I don't know. Probably while it was still under construction. It does seem pretty obvious that it's not going to happen again unless something major happens to this place. I should say that Kodama has some theories about the age that have held up so far. It may have been a special forces of a sort for the maintainers. Started later, mid-8000s. Became somewhat of a research and development arm for the Maintainers Guild. I don't know, worth mentioning though. There are quite a few mentions of such groups in other docs Kodama has found, or at least seen. Entrance. To begin with, I'd wager that no one other than a high-ranking government official, or similar, ever even made it to this room. That's just my guess, but it seems pretty sound. I don't think any high school buddies or girlfriends dropped by to see their maintainer friend. The linking book we found was deep within the Maintainer Guild. I'm sure it was well guarded in its day. You can see right off the bat the entrance was extremely secure. Thick walls, one door, a high window, sniper maybe? If you manage to get in with a bomb or something, it's not going to do any noticeable damage. I love the maintainer symbol on the floor and everywhere else you look, as though I might forget and wonder where I am. Waiting room. So, visitors are escorted into this little waiting room. There's a window on one side, almost looks like a ticket window. Maybe turn in weapons or goods that aren't allowed. Maybe books. I'm sure they didn't want books in here. Yeah, looks like mainly for books. There's another ticket window on the other side, although this one looks different. I'm pretty sure those are beetle cages on the other side. Beetles that sought out ink. Somebody was just telling me there are all kinds of references to them in other docs. You didn't make it past this room with a book. As well, the doors never open at the same time, so even if you somehow make it out of the entrance room, you're still not going to make it past these mammoth doors out of the waiting area. Halls. Looks like the hall ran along the entire circumference of the building. There are plenty of rooms. I'll just try to hit them one at a time. First is an elevator, though. However, it looks like it's only down. Wonder if it was always that way. Or security, I guess. Once you've made it into the halls, there's still nowhere to go, at least if they didn't want you going anywhere. Lockers. I would think that any books that were brought to the age were kept in the lockers. I'd imagine that some of the workers here are frequent visitors, also kept some equipment, but I could be wrong on that. Looks like they kept some maintainer gear as well. Markers, helmets, etc. Seems a little out of place, honestly. Keys. Okay, things are becoming a little more clear now. Just had a long chat with Laxman and researched some different docks over in the city that Nick had. Looks like the current condition I'm seeing was not the original condition. The key was a major development not just for the guild, but also apparently for all citizens. Turns out they were just starting to hand out the keys to the public around the time of the fall. Nice timing. So it looks like they had done some renovations in order to facilitate the mass amounts of visitors that would be coming in to retrieve keys. Turns out my little girlfriend analogy was pretty much completely wrong. Girlfriends and more were going to start coming here, at least to the open sections. Kodama corrected me. We've actually found multiple books in neighborhoods, as well as the guarded maintainer book I mentioned earlier. Whoops. So visitors come in, walk through the doors, beetles check for books, and then they walk down the hall into the key room, get a key, and link out. Guards were probably at the up elevator, which is just behind this room. If they did happen to bring any illegal items, they get them back from the other side of the locker room, and off they go back home with their new shiny key. Makes more sense as to why the maintainer paraphernalia was in the locker rooms too. Probably a little display type thing for all the visitors. Impress them. Warehouse. Quite a bit of goodies in here, all of which I'm sure most visitors never saw. Pretty bad cave-in from the floor above, although Engbird says structurally the place seems alright. He's doing more detailed inspections soon. Looks like most of these crates are filled with key maintenance type equipment as well as a variety of spare parts, etc. I don't know. Laxman will have to give this place a good inspection. I'm sure he'll love going through it all. beyond me, I know that. Beetle cages. Convenient cave-in. Not sure how one is supposed to get in the beetle cages without it. No idea how they did it. Link, maybe. Regardless, pretty positive the cages were for beetles. Symbols on the front and quite a bit of remnants in some of the dirtier cages. We'll have to clean those up. I wonder when they all died. Speaking of access, another question. How did they get to the second floor? Elevators skip the middle floor. More security, I guess. Second floor. Destruction was a little more substantial than I thought. Looks like it tore out a section of the outer wall, even. I'm going to get out of here until Engberg can come back again. Been a few days, but I'm back. I'm no expert, so I guess I'll have to trust Engberg. But he says this whole thing is one of the most solid, heavy pieces of construction he's ever seen. It's safe, he assures me. If I die here and someone retrieves this recording, please sue him for me. Second floor looks similar to the first. Outer hall and a number of rooms. Have to remember that very few people probably ever walked these halls. There's no access via elevators, stairs, anything to get here. I assume it had to be done via a linking book, which is probably somewhere in the city. I suppose there could be a way to stop these elevators in the middle floor, but I doubt it. Regardless, this floor was extremely secure. Book access only, I'm guessing. Guard lounge. Next to the observation room, at least that's what I assume it was, is what looks like a guard lounge. Looks like they stayed here for long amounts of time. There are beds in here as well as couches. I assume these guys manned the window/observation posts while visitors were coming in. Guard lockers. More lockers, similar to the set downstairs, although these are manned with some heavy equipment. I'm sure Watson will want to see this stuff and keep it locked up well. In fact, I'm not even going to go into detail about it here. Laxman can write all about this stuff in a later report. I will say I didn't know that Dunny had these kinds of technology. Gear room. Now I see why this floor was so secure. Looks like the whole power structure for this building is here. Amazing construction. The entire building looks to have been powered by some underground water source that caused it to turn. They implemented a gear that would grab onto teeth in the ground outside and provide them a power source as well. Talk about killing two giant birds with one stone. Pretty amazing. Power looks somewhat complicated. Seems as though there were at least occasions that power was turned off, as there are obviously controls to do that and then start it again. I'm heading to the top. Wow, I thought this building was big. The main portion is absolutely giant. And rotating, too, of course. I'm overcome with the amount of work put into this place just for security. It's everywhere. Almost comical picturing government officials walking the same paths I am. Amazing. To get to the other side, looks like one had to walk across the bridge to the rock pinnacle. The first place since we've arrived that we're able to save a link. And it's not big. And there's a massive structure facing you if you did. Pretty funny to try and picture an army invading. All of them bunched up on this stone waiting for these bridges to rotate. What the? My gosh. The creatures. These things are something out of a horror movie. I've been up here a little while and I don't see them often, but when I do, they are scaring me to death. I'm beginning to understand the fences and structures a little better. Perhaps some of them were designed to keep creatures out more than keep visitors in. Don't hang out in these woods unless you have a big gun. Another bridge to reach the main portion of this place. More security. I will say that the platform between the bridges seems to have eroded. At one time, crossing the bridges was probably a security feature to ensure manageable groups would approach the larger building one at a time, but I would wager it was still a lot easier than it is now. The erosion to the platform between the bridges has made it a little rougher. That's an understatement. I suppose the maintainers would like it even more in its current condition. Mudrooms. I'm not sure what to call these things, but they remind me of mudrooms, so I'll call them that. Not much here. Looks like each bridge has a mudroom attached to it with another group of doors, etc. There doesn't seem to be any kind of decompression or decontamination that went on here. Really, they seem to be nothing more than another spot for another set of doors. Another secure location. Training Center. I was going to go through each of the rooms here, but after making a quick overview, I think I'll just start with the entire thing. There are 3 types of rooms in the building, 2 of each kind. There's a control room, 1 purple and 1 yellow, a display room, 1 purple and 1 yellow, and then a conference room. Though these aren't colored, I am assuming there's one for each team. The entire building seems to be centered on the massive wall in the middle. The control rooms control the wall. The display rooms display the uniforms that were worn in the wall, I presume, and the conference rooms allow the government visitors and high-ranking officials to confer about those training on the wall. See? So control rooms first. Control rooms. I'm not going to go into controls for the wall in this dock. I'll let Laxman do that at some other time. Regardless, the panel here obviously controls the wall. The wall was used for training as well as testing of various suits. I believe the central room can get pretty hot, cold, smoky, or anything else I can imagine pretty quick. It was a competition, whoever could get to the top the quickest. Teams would set up the obstacles and members would race. There's a side tunnel that provides access to the display rooms from the control room. Display rooms. Not sure that these were originally display rooms, or maybe they were. Either way, there are quite a few old maintainer suits in here. There's also the latest maintainer suit, or skin, here. I guess I should say the machine to put on the latest maintainer suit is in here. Now that we've had some time to look at this, it's incredible. We're talking about a suit that was skin tight and had linking abilities, etc. built in. Very high tech as far as maintainer suits go. Very impressive. A maintainer would fall down the chute, and while traveling to the interior room / the wall, the suit would be placed on him. I'm begging to try this thing, but DRC has insisted no one does. Laxman already has someone on it trying to figure out more. I'm first when they do. I think these rooms could basically be described as team locker rooms. Conference rooms. Well, I guess these rooms were where the bigwigs sat down and talked about their maintainers. Obviously, they were set up to watch the wall, and there are displays that show the patterns being built and played on the wall. We'll never know, but I can see the guild masters in here watching their teams compete, preparing to send them out to some radioactive fireball age to see if their new suits can stand the elements. Upper portions. I'm not going up now, but we do know that upper portions were used as prison cells. Typical Dunny technology, they had a single linking book that went to all the cells. Since the building was always rotating, a very complicated linking apparatus and timing mechanism was associated with the book. The timing of the link would determine which cell the person linked into. Apparently, it was very tight. Speaking of linking, this entire building is rotating as well. It seems that most visitors came on the path from the well, although there were also books directly to this building. There had to be. It seems that many of them also used the timing mechanism to link into specific rooms. Looks like another new feature designed and built by these guys. One of many, I'm sure. I'm just wondering where the main research labs were. Or better yet, where did everyone sleep or eat? Okay, so there was a lot of information there, and a few things I want to talk about first. One of them was the nature of this age and particularly the first building. We now know that this age belonged to the Guild of Maintainers, and we're going to learn a little bit more about Dunny guilds, I believe, later on. It's not exactly a whole lot of information, but basically in their society they had different groups of people that were tasked for different things. And the Guild of Maintainers, I'll go ahead and leave here while we talk about this. The Guild of Maintainers was basically responsible for going to ages to make sure they were safe, essentially. And the suits that we saw were used in the service of making sure that the people themselves were safe when they actually went to the age, which is why they were talking about a fireball age in that document. So, the old suits that were mentioned were the huge ones. In fact, I think there's one in here. Yep, there it is. So this big thing that we were looking at earlier is actually one of the old suits that was mentioned in the book. And the one we're wearing right now is a new suit. If you stand under there, that's just going to be... that'll just put it on you again, so I'm not going to do that. So I believe this is the team locker room type room, since I don't think this is the display room. You can't look in there. And it looks like this is the sort of place a team would hang out and change into their suits and stuff. And they mentioned that there is a tunnel that goes into the control rooms, as well as the colors purple and yellow. And so this, I believe, we were wondering what it was earlier. This, I think, is the control room, or the display room. So this is where the course would be controlled. And this is interesting, because you can't actually get out here. So this whole area here is basically an obstacle course that was used for training for the maintainers who were in the guild. And it sounds like they had sponsors or other people who would watch them from these conference rooms. I think the intention here was that in the online portion of the game, there would be a game that you could play here, and the places where you could change, you'll notice that they had that little thing on the floor. I think that would drop and you would then go down, or that would open up and you would drop down, and you would go all the way into the obstacle course and participate in this. And there was even mention that this guy named Laxman was going to provide further information on that, so I'm guessing that that would have been implemented later, but unfortunately it didn't get implemented. So that's this building here. But let's talk about the first building, the one that we came through. It seems like that building was built for security, as Simpson mentioned, and a lot of the measures that we saw throughout the building, like the first few things that you got that you had access to, were specifically placed to make sure that nothing got through that was iffy or anything. We also had a little bit of a note about the placement of the elevator that went up, and it was behind the key room, so people could just go to the key area and then not go through that door. So that's interesting as well as the second floor with the gear room and all that. We were only able to get up there because we had all that rubble to climb up, but normally, as Simpson noted, you wouldn't be able to get up there, so that's kind of interesting. Alright, so let's read this first. There's a notebook here, and this one is about the key. This one's a little shorter than the last one, so let's go ahead and get started. The key. There's no one named that transcribed this, so maybe this was also Simpson, I'm not sure. Base functions. Dunny number 3 on the back side of all these devices. 3 functions? There's certainly more than that. 3 core functions? In any case, it's a convenient name. Key. Nexus interface. Number 1. The Nexus seems to be just an interpreter for key data. Keys allow users to provide or decline book access to other keys. I think we can make this work for neighborhoods as well. Age names defined in the key appear in the Nexus, or should. 2. Interpersonal communication. Obviously the most important function, voice or text communication to other key users. Inter or intra-age doesn't seem to matter. 3. Image capture, storage, and transfer. A single button press captures an image and stores it with an appropriate age directory. Images can be sent to other keys as well as uploaded to some imagers, depending on versions. Seems main servers coordinated this functionality. Might be tough to revive. 4. Journal entry, storage, and transfer. Fairly simple. Write notes and store them. Again, server handles transfer journal, key to key or key to imager. 5. Markers. The ability to drop and collect markers at the operator's present location in an age. Layers of functionality here. Requires more research. Perhaps this feature could be tapped to help with the GZ problem. Interesting. 6. Doors. In this age, the key, even at its most basic level, opened level 1 doors. Level 2 and 3 doors require higher versions. There's much more variety to these devices than we first suspected. The dispenser is capable of handing out at least 5 versions and possibly more. Feature set varies widely. There must have been a system to control and track these devices. Where? Imager built into the unit is surprisingly compact and efficient. Uses the same blasted lattice compression system, for lack of a better word. Have to crack that. Powerful projection for something that fits on the top of a hand. Markers. Purpose. Perhaps a training tool for maintainers. Markers could be set up in recruits and or lower ranks run through the course. Interface. Keys interact with markers in 3 ways. Team capture. Once all the markers are placed, there are 2 teams that can collect markers. The key registers the marker to the respective team. Markers can vanish after a time limit or after all have been registered. Markers must be in same age. Test. Can markers be reset? Hold. Again, 2 teams. Markers only vanish after a preset time limit has expired. Markers do not disappear upon being activated, although server keeps track of what team is holding it. Server summaries team holding most markers at the end of the time limit. Markers must be in same age. Single capture. Only 1 individual key can register markers. Markers also carry text. Entire marker set can be sent via key to another key anywhere in the system. Markers can be placed in any age. Markers themselves seem identical to those produced by the Great Zero. In fact, I'm positive the same technology is being used, if not the Great Zero itself. It's possible the keys are communicating with the Zero itself and writing these marks anywhere they are registered. Problems with that theory, maintainer markers, etc. Key registration. Key tracks of other keys on 3 levels. Intra-age. Any other key within the age is logged and displayed. Key to key. Any individual key can be registered for specific tracking. As a result, no matter where that key is journals, photos, etc. can be sent and communication can occur. Perhaps this was used for temporary or semi-permanent team missions. For our purposes, a friends list? Groups. The key also recognizes groups, somehow related to the Nexus. Seems possible, if properly configured, to support neighborhood lists with this function. Okay, so there's, again, a lot of information here, and a lot of this stuff is not really going to be very relevant until we get to the 2 Dunny expansion, but there's a few things that are worth noting. One of them is that the name Key comes from the fact that the Dunny number 3 looks like the letters K and I. So, in case you couldn't tell just by looking at that, comparing to the book, the proverb book from earlier. This thing called the Nexus we'll learn more about later, but you'll notice that a lot of these things, particularly the communication-related stuff, this was meant to be used when you connected with people online, particularly, and you could have a friends list and get together with people across different ages, and in the real world, you'd have to go across different servers for different ages as well, so that's also a thing. There's also reference to this thing called the Great Zero, or the GZ, which we'll also learn more about later, so just hang on to those thoughts for now. And these marker things, we'll also learn more about those, although I think a lot of the games that they're detailing here were meant to be used online as well. So anyway, that's pretty much what the keys are all about. So they also mentioned that there's different levels of keys and doors, which was what I was alluding to earlier. So, interesting stuff. There's one more thing we can look at in here, and this is pretty much all there is to see. We cannot, unfortunately, get to that upper portion that was mentioned in the notebook that we read earlier by Simpson from here, but then posted on the front of that notebook did seem to indicate that there is a link stone that might lead there from a place called Teledon, which was a name that we saw in that proverb book, so we might want to go to that age next. Anyway, there's also something here to look at, and it looks like another one of these link stones, so let's check this one out. Nothing more to do here, so might as well go ahead and see the site somewhere else, right? Looks like we kind of dropped down there. That was a little weird looking. Anyway, we have made it to the Dunny Cavern, and this is a much different location than the previous one we saw. This is actually the main city area named Agura, and we're going to be exploring this a lot in the 2 Dunny expansion as well. We can actually get a pretty good view of a few things here. Seems to be a strip mall or something down there, or maybe some houses or something. And then there's this area here with some pretty prominently towering buildings. I think the intent behind this whole thing was that you were meant to kind of get a little bit of a taste of Dunny in the base game before you actually bought the online stuff. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, looks like there's nothing else to do here, so we will go ahead and head back to Relto. I'm going to be wrapping up the video right about now. We have pretty much done all we can do in Gahreesen for the time being. So in the next video, we're going to start the process of going to Teledon, and there appears to be a new book here on the shelf. This book. It's under the 2 Dunny content, and this is the cavern. I believe that's the location we were just at, actually. But we're not going to go back there. That's going to be a book that we'll reference if we want to go back to the cavern. And I think I'll change back into my normal clothes, so I'll do that in between videos. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and leave for the time being. So, until next time, guys, thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video today. If you did, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that bell so you can get notified of the next video. But until then, thanks so much. Take care, and I will catch you on the flip side.